Thursday thought, capacity. I met up with a friend the other week who has maybe like 4 children or something, and I was explaining to her how a mutual friend of ours has just had her first baby, and she was reminiscing back to the days when she had one and thinking about how at that time it was such an enlarging of her and her husband's capacity. It was such a stretching time. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't think they could cope. Whereas now that she has 4, she's able to look back at that and almost see one as like a fashion accessory. You know, there are those times in our lives when we're going through a stretching season, when our capacity is being enlarged, and it's very, very testing, but it's actually with purpose. Friends of mine who've had babies, for example, maybe they're used to having little tight skinny tummies, and then they start to see the difference in their tummy as it starts to stretch because the baby needs room to grow. But you know, as challenging and as uncomfortable as it is for them in that season, they're okay with it because they know what's being purposed is something really beautiful. And you know, that's great. You know, there are lots of different times and seasons in our life where the enlarging of the capacity is healthy. Whether it be, for example, you know, the birthing of a baby, or you know, for example, maybe we're feeling stretched because we're leading a team right now, but later down in the line, we envisage ourselves leading a department. So it's good for us to go through this stretching and the enlarging of the capacity now. We're even the benefit of other companies choosing to stretch and enlarge their capacity. For example, gone are the days when you used to have to wait a week before you could watch another episode of your favorite series. Now, because other companies have chosen to stretch and enlarge their capacity, we can now download a whole series in one sitting. Hello, Strangers, Things, Numbers, Season 2. You know, but there are also those times though when it comes to capacity whereby it's not so healthy for us. And I've certainly learned in my life whereby you're said yes to a lot of things. You've overcommitted yourself. You're stretched beyond your capacity, whereby you almost start to dilute the excellence that you bring. You become, what's that phrase? A master of all, was it a jack of all trades and a master of none? You know, that kind of thing. And that's not really good either. That's something I'm learning a lot about at the minute. So how about in the next 7 days, you have a look at your own life in terms of capacity. You know, perhaps you're walking through something right now that is really overwhelming because the capacity is being stretched so much that you don't think you can cope. And think about, you know, later down the line, are you going to look back at what at the minute feels like a giant and recognize it as being a grasshopper and realize that there's purpose in it and it is for good? And at the same time, looking at our lives to see whether or not, you know, are we overstretching ourselves? Are we taking on too much? Because that isn't healthy either. And perhaps there's some changes that need to take place there. So have a go, because, you know, I think we can embrace the stretching seasons, the enlarging and capacity that happens in our lives, so much as it's good, so much as it's for purpose. You know, we can be stretched, but also I think it would be really good for us to make sure that we've got the wisdom to recognize if we're being stretched too far and have the wisdom to be able to say no before we hit snapping point.